college football podcast, joined by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak, and we have a fun little full circle moment, I guess, on the show tonight. We're back into the Big Ten, and we are pleased to be joined by Tyler Tachman of the Des Moines Register. Tyler joined us last year. I think he was our first fall preview guest on the show last July, right after or before 4th of July weekend. I can't remember
We
exactly.
were right after. We were right after.
Something in that time. He joins us once again tonight to talk the Iowa Hawkeyes and what should be an exciting season in Iowa City. Tyler, sir, thank you once again for joining us tonight. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's cool to see your guys' growth over the last about a year. So I'm excited to be back on again.
Clinton, are you ready to get back into Big Ten tonight?
Absolutely. It was great talking with Alex about the MAC last night. A lot of fun teams there, but now we're back into our biggest material being the Big Ten, and Iowa is a team that I think you could have wrote it in the questions here. We were a little weak in the knees for them last year, Ryan, but maybe we were a little year premature. So we'll have Tyler dish out some goods for us tonight and see how much Iowa stock we should be buying for this season.
I'm seeing that you definitely did not copy edit my question number 2 that I apparently was half asleep at work when I wrote. Do you see my typo?
No. Let's see.
For question 2.
Imported?
No, right after
Okay.
that.
What am I missing?
Apparently, Mary Gronowski is
I
playing
did.
quarterback for the Iowa
Oh my
Hawkeyes.
God, I can't believe I overlooked that. Oh my gosh. Mary Gronowski.
Oh,
Now it's
no.
Mark. It's edited
That's
now.
they're not
Sorry,
even
Tyler.
they're not even close to each other on the keyboard. I have no idea how I
Oh
did
my
that.
gosh.
Oh,
I don't
boy.
know how I
Yeah.
didn't catch that when I read through those last
Yeah,
night.
well-
It tells you where I was at, tired
Well,
wise as well.
Well, good thing it's in a Google Doc, and I am pretty sure I got it right in the YouTube description tonight. So yeah, I did. So good job, Ryan. I'm having a good night.
Can we get a little behind that? What's the Pizza King? What's the is that what's the story behind that nickname?
Oh boy.
That is kind of a
How much time do
some
you got?
somewhat self-donned nickname in addition to buddies. I just love pizza, man. I've been a big pizza thing for a long time. Who doesn't love pizza is what Ryan always says, but I go a little
Yeah.
above and beyond, 1 to 2 times a week typically. My wife's trying to push us to be a little cleaner on the eats, so it's usually once a week now. It also saves a little money on the wallet. But the big thing is I used to have a pizza review Instagram back in the day, and had a for just only about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Got a decent little following, and then I had children, and I didn't have time to write 20-minute pizza reviews anymore. And then I decided to add more to my life and then do hour plus long podcasts, which are even longer than pizza reviews. But pretty much Pizza King, anywhere I go, I got to have a new pizza if I'm in a new area. That's why I'm always looking for recommendations from people when we travel. Been to Italy, we were there 5-6 days for a honeymoon, and I ate pizza twice a day every single day. We usually got them as appetizers. So I'm a pretty big diehard when it comes to pizza. It's on the level of college football for sure. But so that's my Twitter handle is Pizza King _58. So I've just cut the _58 part off and just left Pizza King there.
So you were like the Portnoy before Portnoy. One bite, everybody knows the rules. Is that what I'm hearing?
I wish I was. Well, I don't want to be Dave Portnoy, but I would like to have the money that comes with his pizza reviews. That'd be for sure.
Yeah.
No, he started that well before I did. That's
Okay,
that's for
okay.
sure. But he kind of inspired me just to do some local ones. I had a lot of fun with it. I got some free pizza out of it. I got to meet a lot of cool people around Columbus by reviewing their pizzas. People are super appreciative if you say something nice. And let me tell you, they're not as appreciative if you don't say something nice. So I guess they should step up their pizza game. They better step it up because I try to be honest. Same way I am with my patients. I'm being honest with you. I won't be mean, but I'll be honest. And if your pizza's not good, then I can't give you a good rating, right? That'd be lying to the people. So that's kind of how it got rolling, and I've just kept with it. Actually, this Twitter handle I have now was not my previous one. Somehow Twitter locked me out. I could never get back in, and so I just had to make a new handle, so that's what I went with.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Same time next year. Glad we could talk about That's it for today's show.
Yeah, right. It's just the yearly pizza talk.
There we go.
It'd be a good episode.
Man, I'm always down to talk pizza. But what we're here to do tonight is talk about the Iowa Hawkeyes in 2025 and what was an interesting season, to say the least, from 2024. A lot of good things, some things that seem like a small step back. But let's jump right into here. Question number one. The offense has been a vast talking point surrounding this team for an extended period of time. The total team offense was still kind of near the bottom of the FBS in terms of yards per game, but the scoring offense improved nearly 28 points per game after a pretty abysmal 2023. What has been the fan tenor around year one of Tim Lester's attack, and what are the expectations for year two?
A lot of positivity from Tim Lester's first season as Iowa's offensive coordinator because of basically two reasons. One, Kaleb Johnson just having a breakout season, kind of emerging as one of the best running backs in college football, and obviously now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the second reason is Iowa's offensive line. They've kind of went through a multi-season rebuild and finally kind of got back to what is the program standard when you think about Iowa, which is just really good offensive line play, tough and physical. And so those two things together, there was some real offensive progress from the doldrums of the end of the Brian Ferentz era, which nationally was a big storyline, and people around college football that it got a lot of attention, and not in a bad way for Iowa. So Tim Lester kind of just invigorated some energy around the offense. Now, the passing game was severely lacking last season. It was a very, very run heavy and run reliant offense. That's where almost all of the production came from. So now coming into this season, Kaleb Johnson's off to the NFL. The running backs coach Liddell Betts left Iowa for the New York Giants, so that was a big step for him. But there's still optimism around the run game. There's some guys that have kind of waited their turn behind Kaleb Johnson, kind of most prominently being Kamari Moulton. But there's a few guys that I could see having good seasons. The offensive line, you have Jennings Dunker coming back. You have Logan Jones, who could be, one of the best centers in college football. So there's good vibes around that. I think it kind of falls back on the quarterback play and the passing game. Now you bring in Mark Gronowski, and he is, Iowa hasn't had someone like him in a while. When you talk about just the resume he has, the production over a long period of time, the level that he has won at, he's won two FCS national titles at South Dakota State. So that's where it lies right now. Is I think the receiving game is probably in a better spot than it's been in the last few seasons, but there's still kind of questions about the passing game. Is Mark Gronowski finally going to be the quarterback that Iowa's needed? Because there's scar tissue here, and I'm sure we might go back and talk more about Mark Gronowski here in a bit, or Mary Gronowski, one of the two. But this was kind of Iowa fans went through the same deal when Cade McNamara came in. Like, this is a big time transfer. Like, there's a lot of excitement, expectations, and Cade McNamara's the era at Iowa didn't get anywhere close to what people were hoping for. So that's why there's maybe some skepticism at this point. But it's one of those things. I think now you're just kind of in the wait and see mode, and you just kind of have to wait till the production on the field either happens or doesn't happen to really make a full judgment.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's such a fascinating conversation because, I mean, you mentioned the passing game last year was still a sore spot, as it has been for a few years now. But having the running game that they did despite that, I think, is definitely a positive. That, teams know that this is an Iowa offense that wants to run the ball, is going to run the ball, and they still couldn't really stop them. And I think, at least for me, I get it's different levels, right? Cade McNamara led Michigan to a Big Ten title. He led Michigan to a playoff berth, but that wasn't Cade McNamara leading it. It was more. He's there, but he's kind of managing the game. He's not making catastrophic mistakes. He was fine. He was good, but I don't know that anyone would necessarily call him a game changer. And there's something to be said for aggressive competence, right? And I think even for Iowa, aggressive competence would be a bit of a step up. But you bring in a guy in Mark Gronowski who has been a certified playmaker at the FCS level. He's gotten close to or surpassed 3,000 yards in each of his last 3 years starting. He's thrown for at least 23 touchdowns in each of the last 3 years starting while limiting interceptions. And he's a guy who can make plays on the ground. 2 of his 4 seasons starting, he has rushed for double-digit touchdowns. So when you look at this guy in a vacuum and what he brings to this offense, In what way do you see his ability to elevate this Iowa attack when you are now coupling it with, again, a team that's traditionally run the ball well?
I mean, really, any level of competence quarterback play is going to be an upgrade from what it's been. So I think the thing about Mark Gronowski is he also can, he has the ability to run the ball and do damage on the ground. Now, he's not like an elusive Lamar Jackson type, runner, but he can, if it's needed, he's run for a lot of yards in his college career. He can throw it. And I think maybe one of the biggest things is he's orchestrated winning at the college level. There's going to be a step up from where he's been at South Dakota State to the Big Ten level, but he's done it for such a long period of time that, I mean, everything that we've heard in kind of the lead up to the season is, I mean, his leadership, his character, the way that he's integrated himself into the program. He's done everything that you would want to hear to this point. And I mean, offensively in Tim Lester's system, I mean, you saw like that's like a quarterback's dream in terms of what Iowa did running the ball last season. Like the avenues that can open up the passing game. That's like what we were talking about all last season. It's like I mean, they were stacking the box so heavy because they knew that Kaleb Johnson was really the main threat on Iowa's offense, and daring, whether it be Cade McNamara, Brendan Sullivan, Jackson Stratton, to throw the ball, and Iowa just was not able to do that. So that, if Iowa can even get close to running the ball at the level it did last season, like that's a really good spot for a quarterback, because there's going to be so much emphasis in trying to stop the run. That's where, if you talk about Iowa, and this is a word that Iowa fans haven't gotten accustomed to offensively, but a dynamic offense, that's where you could start getting closer to that if you start pairing the passing game with the running game that Tim Lester really built that foundation in last season.
And we're talking about a winner too, right? A two-time FCS national champion. He was the MVP in both of those games, and he won the Walter Payton Award in 2023, the FCS version of the Heisman. I believe it was a shoulder procedure he had in the offseason. How has his health been? It looks like, I mean, at least from the videos we've seen, he's been a full participant in camp so far.
Yeah, he was. So during the spring, near the end of the spring, he was like throwing very lightly, but basically all the spring was just him getting mental reps. He wasn't, which is another reason that the skepticism again, because Iowa fans went through the same thing with Cade McNamara's injuries. It's not apples to apples, but I do understand why this is, it's not an easy thing for Iowa fans to kind of fully wrap their minds around, just because of the way that the last two seasons have gone. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, as far as he said, he's been full go in fall camp. He said during the summer that he was back to 100%. He's been back to 100% now for a while. So, barring something that we don't know about at this point, like he's full go, and everything is good with him at this point.
Certainly an exciting piece to add on the offense for the season, especially with his legs, to further complement what they had with the run game. So that kind of leans into question 3. And Gone is our Rollin' Player of the Week. Tyler, I don't know if you're familiar. I'm sure you've heard of Limp Bizkit, but their song Rollin', that was our jam of the year last year, and we got to play it for Kaleb Johnson so many times because he was our rolling running back of the week pretty much every week in the Big Ten, with stats galore. And I have him here, 12 games, 240 attempts, 1,537 yards, 6.4 yards per carry, 21 TDs, and 128 yards per game. And I believe there are multiple games he went over 200 last year. He's trading black and gold for black and gold now with my favorite team, the Bengals. There you go, Ryan. There's my Bengals mention for the night, to the Steelers. But Kamari Moulton and, is it Jazuin? Is that how you say his name? Patterson? Jazuin Patterson were both great against Missouri in the bowl game. Is this still going to be a run-heavy offense in 2025, or now with the imported Mark Gronowski, with hopefully improved health overall at this position, do you expect a more balanced approach kind of between the backs and the quarterback? And then to kind of pan off of that, who should we be looking to kind of step up as maybe the pass catchers to help assist Gronowski with this offense?
Yeah, Tim Lester's philosophy is establish the run first, and obviously that's just kind of been Iowa's identity of really being able to run the ball. Now it would be hard to get much less run or much more run heavy than Iowa did last season. So I think ideally, in an ideal world, Iowa is more balanced, much more balanced than it was last season, and being able to throw and run. Now I think the run is still that's just part of Iowa's DNA and part of the way that the program is built. So that's going to be a big part of the equation. But obviously now you want to bring in the passing game to make that a more prominent part of the offense. Running back wise, Kamari Moulton, I think to me is at the top of the list. Another guy who I think has a chance to be a real factor is Terrell Washington Jr. He has some elusiveness to him, some shiftiness to him. He can make guys miss. He spent some time as a wide receiver. Now he's moved back to the running back room, so he's kind of a versatile guy. And as far as wide receivers, like the quarterback play has gotten a lot of criticism at Iowa, and it has not been good. But the receiving game has also not really lived up to their end of the bargain as well. And I think Iowa's receiving room is now it might be in the best place it's been in a few seasons. There's a lot of guys got experience last season. I feel like it was a real building year with the first year position coach in John Budmeyer, and they returned a ton of production. And they brought in Sam Phillips from Chattanooga, transfer. He's a real burner, not a very big guy in terms of height, but he can really move. He's really fast. Has more than 2,000 career receiving yards in his college career when he comes to Iowa. So he's a guy that has kind of established production. But there's a long list of handful of guys, 8, 9 guys that could be real contributors, wide receiving wise for Iowa. So I think it's again kind of just cautious optimism at this point with Iowa's receiving game, coupling that with Mark Gronowski. But until we see it happen, in on game day, at this point, I think it's just kind of in the wait and see mode.
I think when we talked to one of someone we had on in the spring, they were pretty high on Reese Vanderzee,
Yeah, he was.
and he's a real big dude, 6'4", 215. I think they talked about in the spring how he'd put on maybe another extra 10 pounds or so to be able to battle with the Big Ten pressure and hands-on approach from the corners in the Big Ten for 2025.
Yeah, he's one of the 8, 9 guys, and he last season, the first game of the season against Illinois State, he caught 2 touchdown passes. So as a true freshman, first college game, so he really burst on the scene. Kind of he dealt with injury and kind of that first game was the kind of the coming out party for him. But he's someone he's still young, has a ton of talent, great hands. And so, yeah, he's one of those guys that definitely could be a factor. Jacob Gill is another one, and yeah, there's a variety of guys. It's a pretty young room, and it has some depth as well.
Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, unless Clinton, you had anything else you wanted to touch on here offensively? Okay. This is a unit that, I mean, they're good every year. And I mean, even taking a little bit of a step back last year, I think it was jarring a little bit early in the season to see some of the big plays that, especially like Iowa State early in the season, that they were giving up. But they tightened up as the season went along. But specifically at the linebacker position, you're having to replace 2 phenomenal football players in Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins. And I think there's a lot on the rest of this defense as well. But if there was a question mark on this Iowa defense, at least from an experience standpoint, it would appear to be the linebacker room, at least from the outside looking in. With these guys leaving, who do you kind of view as the next man up in the linebacker room, or i.e., who's going to be the next stud All Big Ten linebacker that Iowa churns out here?
There's the 2 kind of obvious guys, obvious candidates are Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire. They're cut from a similar cloth to Jay Higgins as guys who are veterans, waited their turn in the program, didn't jump in the portal. But those were on paper maybe the guys that you would point to pretty obviously, but there's a lot of guys behind them. It's a pretty open competition, some younger guys. So I don't think that they're by any stretch guaranteed to be starters. And so that's an open competition. That's one of the big questions on Iowa's defense. The other is cornerback, because Iowa's best cornerback last season, Jamari Harris, move on from the program, and outside of him, there was real instability. They rotated a few guys in there: John Nestor, T.J. Hall, Deshaun Lee, Jalen Watson. All of those guys are now returning, but they didn't. Iowa just didn't find its footing outside of Jamari Harris. So now you have, on both sides, I think TJ Hall is a guy who kind of, at least during the spring, really made some positive improvements, but at least entering the season, you look back to Iowa having a guy like Riley Moss, Cooper DeJean, Jamari Harris became that cornerback one last season. Iowa doesn't have that like real high end, like all Big Ten level guy entering this season. And you mentioned the explosive plays. That was really what that hurt Iowa last season. The defense, Iowa's defense was still really good, but some of the numbers were inflated because of those long plays. There was a couple against Troy, and that was like really really jarring to see, and that exposed, Iowa's secondary. I think probably was arguably the weakest part of Iowa's defense last season. So that's a major, I wouldn't say concern, but I think it's a concern entering this season is the secondary, the cornerback play, linebacker, and then I think I feel pretty good about the defensive line. You lose Y.A. Black, who was really good in the interior, but you bring back Aaron Graves, who has the potential to be all Big Ten guy, and they brought in a couple of transfers. So I think the D line room is in a solid space, but the two biggest questions right now is linebacker and then cornerback.
And just for frame of reference here, Iowa was 20th in total defense last year, and I believe 17th. I just had it. 32nd in scoring defense, 17.8 points per game, but they were 42nd in the country in pass yards per game allowed. So certainly gives credence to, again, the big plays that, again, kind of overinflated that number maybe a little bit, but again, kind of gives credence to that comment about the cornerbacks there.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think the thing with just Phil Parker has been so consistent that even with these question marks, I think there's a level of comfort of like, oh, it's Phil Parker, like it's Seth Wallace, like they're gonna figure it out. Like they maybe Iowa entering the season doesn't have the type of flashiest names that they haven't had the last few seasons, but Jay Higgins wasn't a flashy name before he burst on the scene 2 seasons ago. So there's the reputation gives that level of like, okay, they've done this consistently and they've replaced guys and they've still stayed at that high level. Whereas on the other side of the ball, you have some guys that are a little bit more established on the offensive line. You have a Mark Gronowski. You have a receiving game that theoretically should take a step forward, but because of the reputation in a different way to the defense, there's still that level of skepticism about the offense.
And you talked a little bit about the defensive back, so I'll kind of turn question 5 more into the defensive line play. And we know DBs, D lines, they have direct correlations to one another. So really important that D lines can generate pressure. And you mentioned Graves, but also Herkett is coming back. He led the team in sacks last year. I believe he was only a half a sack more than Graves. But someone chatted with him at Big Ten Media Days and asked him who he thought the breakout players could potentially be, specific to the D-line, but he also gave some names on the whole entire team. So outside of those two big ones we mentioned on the D-line, who are some guys that could really make a big step in progress this year for Iowa?
One for sure, Cohen Entringer. He might play safety, cash, kind of in the back end of Iowa's secondary, but he's big, he's physical, he's fast. He has the physical tools, the intangibles. He kind of got caught a little bit last season in the log jam that Iowa had at safety, where Sebastian Castro, Quinn Schulte both decided to come back, and that kind of closed his pathway to more playing time. But he decided to stick it out, and he's a guy that, I mean, this Iowa is really high on. He's only made one career start at Iowa. That came against Michigan State last season. He had an interception, but he's very much like a Jay Higgins story, where nationally there's just not, there's not really any buzz about him, but he's a guy that has the tools to where he could have a breakout season, and He's a redshirt junior, so he still has 2 seasons of eligibility left. Another guy on the defensive line is Max Llewellyn. I think he might be one of Iowa's most talented pass rushers off the edge. He's made some big plays. He made some big plays in his last year for Iowa on the defensive line, but now with Deontay Craig moving on, he's going to move into a bigger role. He's another. I think those are two of the guys, and then the linebacker position is kind of open as to who could potentially break out there. One guy who is more well known nationally that hasn't put it all together yet in his Iowa career is Xavier Wampa. He was super highly touted coming out of high school, decided to stay home and play for Iowa in his home state, but he hasn't had that like one season that just like really pops yet. And he's a senior now. This is his last go around. He's someone who, again, he was highly regarded in high school, has the ability to do it. But he's someone that I think if the secondary is going to exceed what it did last season, he's someone who could play a big role in that.
What about I believe he's a freshman this year, right? Espinosa?
Yeah. Jose Epinesa. Yeah, he's a legacy Hawkeye. That was a big get for Iowa, but he's when you look at true freshmen potentially being able to come in, make an impact, he's one that comes to the top of the mind. He didn't early enroll, so we didn't really get to see him in the spring. But yeah, I mean, his older brother, or his oldest brother, AJ, now in the NFL, he came in and he made an impact in his true freshman season. So that's a name that, definitely worth tracking on the defensive line as someone maybe, can make an impact early on.
I love the legacies that move on. And Ryan, before you get to question 6, we cannot talk Iowa without talking special teams, because that is what Kirk Ferentz lives by, man. He is a special teams master. So I don't know, fill us in a little bit. What do we got? They're always known for punters. We got some damn good punters. Torrey Taylor there, but maybe the returners. What are we looking like Iowa special teams this year for 2025?
They could be one of the best units in the country. They're returning their punter, their kicker, and their return man. So Drew Stevens is their kicker. He had a really good season last season, and he's in the running, I think, to be one of the best, if not the best kicker in the Big Ten. He has a chance to really he had a really good year last year and has a chance to build on it now. Reese Dakin, the punter, he was a true freshman last season. There was definitely a drop off from Torrey Taylor. You could see the flashes, but he has a chance to build on what he did last season and kind of just be that real punting weapon that Iowa fans have kind of gotten used to. And then maybe the best of the three of them, or at least he's holding his own with Drew Stevens for sure, is Caden Weegan, who won the Jet Award last season. Just a real dynamic returner, not a very big guy, but just is slippery in the return game. It's hard to bring down. And he's a great story. He started his college career at JUCO, came to Iowa as a walk-on, worked his way up. Now he's on scholarship. And it's going to sound kind of weird, but the biggest question for Iowa's special teams unit is long snapper, because they had a real veteran long snapper that they lost. And so it's that's the biggest question mark. But in terms of like punting, return game, and kicking game, like Iowa, that might be, with the way Iowa plays in the margins, like special teams is a big deal. And even more so now we've been talking about some of these question marks defensively and still not knowing exactly when you're going to get from the offense. Like, it might need to be the special teams unit that's going to pick up some of the slack.
Well, I hope Iowa gets to kick a game-winning field goal to break Iowa State's heart this year. Damn it. I was all in on that game, and I'm sitting here watching it in just utter disappointment.
We can joke all we want about the long snapper, but you don't realize how important the long snapper is until your guy cannot hit.
You're talking to a high school long snapper here. I know how important it is. Short snap and long snap. It's fantastic.
You look like a long snapper.
I don't take that as a compliment or not. Hey, listen, man. The best part of it, and I don't. This doesn't happen as much in college, but you get some complete dildo brain returners in high school football who just stand here and stare at the sky, and you just get to kill them. And that was my favorite part. I didn't even care. I mean, I give my guy a good snap. He'd probably be able to punt it like maybe 30 yards. And this dude's just standing here, and it's just kaboom. It was fantastic. It was one of my
Is
favorite things to do in
is
football.
30 yards the longest you've ever run in one sitting at a time in your entire life?
Me?
Yeah.
No, we had to do 100-yard sprints, man.
Okay, is that the longest you've ever run in one sitting in your entire life?
Are you talking like a sprint or distance?
No, just have you ever like run a mile before?
Yes. I think we our coach, for some reason, in basketball conditioning, made us run like 5.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, this is not relevant. But anyways,
Not so
side
fun.
tangent. But
Yeah.
yes, I always enjoyed snapping is important, man. Again, sorry to reference the Bengals here, but they're talking about how important the cohesion is between a snapper, the holder, and the
Oh,
kicker.
it's true.
And if it comes off, the ball comes in weird at any time, and a kicker is used to something, man. We talk about receivers being divas. The kickers need their ball specifically
That's the
placed
truth.
in one spot.
You don't
And
know
if
how
you
many
can't get it
times
there,
I've read that someone's thought about changing the holder to maybe be, hey, well, this guy could be a trick play guy, and the kicker's like, no, we're not changing the holder.
yeah,
They're a creature habit, man. They're like goalies in hockey. They're weirdos.
yeah, absolutely.
Before we get to the last question, Tyler, I did have one more defensive question. I get, you kind of alluded to, like, Phil Parker deserves the benefit of the doubt at this point. I mean, one of, if not the best defensive coordinators in the entire country. He's been there forever, and I'm sure when you're there as long as he has been, you have tried, a bunch of different schemes, a bunch of different ideas. Do you get any sense on any schematic changes we might see this year, given, I mean, going back to the loss of the linebackers, I mean, these guys were not just tackling machines, but these guys were fantastic in coverage as well. Higgins leads the team with 4 interceptions last year. I think Jackson had like 7 pass breakups or something like that. Do you get any sense on any changes they might make schematically to coverages, just given that you might not have as good of pass coverage at the linebacker position this year?
I would be shocked just because they've done it for so long that I don't think there's going to be like major wholesale changes. I think what's more realistic is there just be a more revolving door of personnel. Like they might be rotating guys more in early in the season to see how they react in game situations. Yeah, I mean I don't see like Phil Parker kind of upending the system at this point.
Gotcha. So heading into our last question and just looking at 2025 as a whole, this is, Clint, I don't remember if you alluded to it at the top of the show or we were talking about a pre-show. This is a team that we were high on last year, and this is a team that I think a lot of people, not just within the fan base, but nationally, are kind of looking at as, hey, this is a team that can make some noise in the Big Ten this year. And they're certainly going to have the opportunity. It is not an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination. You get 3 2024 playoff teams in Big Ten play, but you get them all at home, a place that has traditionally been a house of horrors for top 5 teams at large. You get a team in Iowa State in the non-conference that was playing for a Big 12 title last year. I mean, they got their ass kicked when they got to the Big 12 title game, but I guess that's neither here nor there. But there's certainly a lot of top-heavy ammunition on this schedule, a chance to make some noise nationally. And the rest of the Big Ten schedule is no cakewalk either, man. I mean, you're at Nebraska, at USC. Camp Randall's always a tough place to play. Whether Wisconsin is still a functioning football team by the middle of October, given what they play, we don't know. But when you're looking at this team as a whole, what do you view as kind of realistic expectations for this team in 2025? Should we be talking about playoff Iowa in 2025, or is it kind of somewhere in between?
I think it has a chance potentially to be a college football conversation. I also think that it could be their worst season in years. Part of last season, you had so many guys returning. There was just a much better feel for what Iowa could be as a whole and in individual, positions. But with a lot of those guys that came back now moving on, there's just a lot of unknown at this point. I think Iowa has a high ceiling and a pretty low floor as well, which is, you think about like what keeps Iowa from having a low floor is their defense, but there's a lot of, things that we're wondering about the defense at this point, which, maybe that allows some of the, the wheels to fall off of a season. So I think that there's a variety of directions that the season could go. And the schedule, like you said, it's like they play 3 teams that were in the college football playoff last season: Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana. And one of the narratives around Iowa is that there's a pretty clear gap between them and these kind of beasts of the Big Ten. Like Iowa hasn't beaten a Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan since that 2021 game at Kinnick Stadium. But at the same time, like Kinnick is a really difficult place to play. You're going to be asking these teams to come in there. You saw Indiana at Ohio State last season didn't do great in that type of atmosphere. You know, can Iowa pick off at Indiana with I mean the crowds you would expect are just going to be bonkers. Could Iowa run the table? Yeah, I mean you build some momentum. Maybe if you go in and beat Iowa State on the road, like that would give you some confidence. It's kind of like last season where when Iowa State beat Iowa, that felt like a real turning point in both of those teams' seasons because Iowa State went on to have that real kind of magical season, whereas Iowa was there's some real highs and some real lows, but it wasn't really the playoff hope that some people held on to. So it's going to be an interesting season. I mean, I think it could be really bad. I think it could be really good. We, it's just a lot of kind of unknown at this point compared to the last few seasons.
I think the biggest thing people, and I've been pushing this through the spring, even through last year, need to understand is that this offense is going to continue to be better. It's not going to be Iowa who can't score and Iowa who can't put up some yards. Last year showed with Leicester, it's going to improve. I'm pushing not all my chips in, but some chips in on Mary Gronowski, and that she's gonna I'm gonna deter. He's gonna lead this offense very well to some new heights that we haven't seen for a while, and that does great for Iowa. I think Oregon is really intriguing in the Big Ten this year because they're going to Penn State and they're going to Iowa. They're going to get their first taste of a whiteout. Who knows what? I don't know if Fox ended up with this game. Hopefully NBC got it and we can get a Kinnick game with Oregon at night. But we saw what happened to Washington. I know it's a completely different team, a different year. But what happened to Washington when they made that trip into Kinnick last year and they got railroaded? So it'll be very intriguing to see what happens this year.
I'm excited to watch it. I mean, they're part of that group in the Big Ten where I feel like the season is going to be pretty strongly correlated to what the quarterback ends up being. There's a lot of quarterback uncertainty in the conference this year, and Iowa certainly has a good one, man. I'm excited to see what he does in FBS play full time this year.
Yeah, and the thing with the expanded college football playoff now is it benefits a team and a program like Iowa so much because you're talking about a 4-team college football playoff. The odds of Iowa getting in there are fairly slim. They're going to have a real, just total magical season. But with 12 teams now and, potentially becoming even more down the road, like that makes a program like Iowa have the ability to stay nationally relevant and be in that conversation because it's not going to necessarily take an undefeated regular season to get into that conversation. So that benefits Iowa as a whole, as a program. Still haven't, broken through, but broken through into the college football playoff. But it's always, I think to a certain extent, there's always going to be a question entering every season now with the playoff the way it is. Like, could Iowa be a dark horse? Like, could Iowa manage to, be someone that kind of surprises and gets into the college football playoff?
Well, that's what we like to see, right? It's you have to be good to make the playoff, but you don't have to be perfect. And I think that's a good place to be as a sport right now. We're fans of a program like Iowa or Indiana last year. You can sit there and watch your team into November and say, hey, we're playing for something more than just winning a rivalry game or trying to ruin someone's season. We have a chance to have a legitimately special season. And that's fun for more fan base to experience.
That's what makes college football special. You don't always get that in the NFL because if you're not where you want to be in November in the NFL, it's like, oh, we should be tanking for a top 5 pick. Absolutely. And now you've got contention all year round for teams, if like in Iowa, that can make a push. So it's very exciting.
That's the truth. Well, Tyler, before we let you get out of here tonight, sir, please remind our listeners where they can find your work and what you have cooking up here over the next 2.5 weeks until football season starts.
Yeah, you can find me at write for the Des Moines Register on X at Tyler_T15. And then pretty busy next 2 days. We're recording this on Thursday. Friday we have Iowa Football Media Day.
Nice.
And then Saturday is an open practice. So looking forward. We'll gather a good amount of information these next 2 days as to kind of where Iowa stands and that'll kind of carry us up to the start of the season.
Well, we will definitely be keeping our eyes out for some tidbits on that as we continue our fall preview series here next week. It is our last full week, Clinton, of fall previews. We are back with you guys Monday night next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are talking with Carter Landis, talking Michigan State. We also have Rutgers and Wisconsin on deck next week. And then the following week, the week of week 0, we finish with USC. 4 more episodes here, guys. We are almost done. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening as we talk the Iowa Hawkeyes. Tyler, thank you, sir, once again for joining us. Everyone, have a wonderful weekend.